So, do you guys feel like you always lose the die roll? And maybe you have a hunch that maybe your opponent's deck isn't all that random. Or maybe everyone is sus. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. And the only person you can trust is yourself. Hey guys, this is Tom Box. Welcome to MST.TV. In today's video, we are whipping out my favorite deck. Well, by favorite, it's probably your favorite deck. It's the green-black deck. The green-black deck, which we use to teach you guys about, well, deck manipulation and how to destroy stacked decks and how to follow patterns of how people shuffle, stuff like that. You can consider this one as like a part 2, but we'll review some of the things that happened previously as well. And today's episode, we're going to go one step further. We're going to prevent all forms of RNG-based cheating because it's hard to prove someone's intent to cheat because sometimes they really just don't know. Like, oh, this thing that they do, they see the friend do, it's like not proper randomization. We're going to ensure that the randomization is proper. And it's really easy to force the deck into a randomized state rather than proving the intent that someone was cheating. And most of us don't really want to waste our time. Most of us really want to play, and knowing how to break someone's randomization is like one of the key things here. And we're not going to just talk about the cards, we're also going to go into dice rolling as well, and the proper etiquette of dice roll. I think people really needs to know this because I see like a lot of people make the same mistake whenever they're making the dice roll, and these small advantages can lead to someone going first or second. That could lead to the first whole game won or lost. And I think everyone should be playing on a level playing field. This part of the game should be random. Whatever that's random should be random. And that's like kind of, self-explanatory, but there are people that are trying to manipulate it to gain a slight advantage. And a slight advantage could just mean one additional hand trap, but we all know the difference between 2 and 3 hand traps is the ability to play through it or the ability to shut someone's entire turn down. So you know what? Without further ado, we're going to jump into this one. So make sure you guys smash the thumbs up button and hit like, subscribe, ding notification bell, and let's begin. The first thing I'm going to teach you guys how to enforce RNG on is the dice roll. The dice roll should be the first thing that you should enforce RNG on because it determines who goes first and second, and that could mean an easy game 1 or a hard game 1. But regardless, let me show you guys what people do currently, and I'll expose some of these mistakes. The first thing is people tend to do this. Oh, high roll, 2 die high, and then you're like, okay. So then they roll, you got a 6, and this guy rolls, and they got a 6 as well. Let's just re-roll. And okay, so this person got a 6 and this person got an 8, so this person won. They will get to choose to go first. Do you guys see an issue here? So at a very high tier event and you're suspicious about everything and you don't want anything to blame for losing the die roll, what you can do is this. Either you accept the roll here or you can minimize the equipment being used. Just roll 1 set of dice. Now in real life, you can try this. One of the dice is yours and the other dice belongs to your opponent. And then you both combine it and then you roll the same one and you can agree to high roll or low roll. But you can't really do that in remote duel. So what do you do in remote duel to ensure that there's fairness in the dice roll? The first of all, if a die is rolled off screen, it's a re-roll on that dice because, like, okay, say this person rolled a 6 off screen. That's right here. But then when they pick up the dice, they go, oh, it was a 3. Like, this slight action that's off camera is already too suspicious. So anything that is not on screen is completely re-rollable. I've seen people that rolled poorly on screen and like, oh, that and they just say it was not on screen. That is when you call a judge because they rolled badly and they thought that you didn't see. That is something they call judge on. So anyways, back to the topic here. So the first thing to do is who's rolling the dice, and you can offer to roll your dice for your opponent as well, and they get to choose high or low. And then the other thing is, of course, if your opponent rolls, then you get to choose high or low because you're not the person actually with the dice in their control. So, and you can even randomize that part of it by telling them, can you do a test roll? And so then like they roll the dice, and then if it's like a low, then you can determine like, oh, anything that's 6 and below, it will be a high roll, and anything that is 7 or more, that's going to be a low roll. So now that you've determined what type of roll it is, you can actually do the roll now, and then you can roll for yourself first and then roll for me after. That's how you can do it to completely randomize it. Another thing that you should be doing at the beginning process, especially in remote duel, is you should ask, once you've determined whose dice you're rolling, you should be showing all the facets of the dice on camera. There are some people that use trick dice and they've gotten away with it. I'm putting this extra step in just for everyone's peace of mind, because they have to be able to show you guys every single face. And one thing I really like about these Yu-Gi-Oh branded dice is that one of the faces, of course, one of the ones is, well, the Blue Eyes White Dragon, or there's a graphic on it, which means they can't really take the one side and just put a bunch of dots on it and just make it so that's another 6. And another great feature about these dice is that it has a Yu-Gi-Oh logo on them. And that particular Yu-Gi-Oh logo is great because it's hard to manipulate. It's like, basically it's really hard to find like a 4, make it a 6 or something, or make a 4 into a 5. Like, there's a lot of things that can prevent manipulation on these dice, which is great. And that's why I really like using them. And that's actually one of the key things. You should keep rolling onto the same brand, because I've seen people try to do something like this. They're like, oh, can you roll for me? And then they take one dice from one brand and one dice from another brand and be like, oh, this is me and this is you. Like, I don't really trust you at all at this point, because you got 2 different brands of dice. So you should really be keeping everything the same. And if you see someone do that, don't be afraid to call out. I know a lot of people are afraid to, like, oh, confrontation, but like, you can just be like, oh, can you just roll the same dice for both of them? They really should just say yes. They really should not be having a problem with it, and they should not be having a problem with a high roll or a low roll, because again, this is supposed to be random. So anyways, that might be like me over talking about, you know, dice rolling, but that is usually the first step. And let's go into deck manipulation. So for deck manipulation, this is actually more towards a remote duel, because in real life, you can pick up your opponent's deck and start shuffling it like crazy. One thing to keep in mind, especially when people are shuffling, is that they keep the deck face down in most cases. However, in a remote duel, you should probably keep it at an angle so people can actually see how the cards are actually landing. I tend to do something like this so they can actually see the card drop. And they can see that the last card is also being manipulated as well. That's very, very important that they can see that, because if they can't see that last card being manipulated, chances are you're not really manipulating it. And it's actually really easy to highlight with this. This is something that occurred more in remote duel, that if you want to bring this to your attention, I can see why some people tell people to cut from the bottom to the top. So here are all the cards that in this particular case I don't want to see. All right, so I'm shuffling like this. Do you see that the green stack is not moving at all? Well, okay, maybe one of them kind of got a little caught there, but you can see that most of the green stack is not moving. Is because that's probably where your opponent is expecting you to, like, oh, cut it in half. All right, cut it in half and remove the top 5. They still won't see that card. Like, this one was an outlier. This is the one that actually got shuffled back to the top, but in most cases, they won't see their cards, and then when they activate one Rhoda or one search, the whole deck gets shuffled again, and therefore they are not really going to care, because now they have more of their good cards in their hands. So whenever I ask to cut cards, this is what I do. I take a pair of dice. This is one of my favorite ways to do it, and I did this throughout the entire YCS. I rolled the dice like this. Oh, I got a 5 and a 1. So one of the dice represents how many cards I'm going to cut, and the other dice represents how many times they're going to have to riffle their deck. So whenever that occurs, this is what happens. I'm like, oh, 5, you have to riffle 5 times. And this is where you have to pay close attention and make sure that whenever they're shuffling, it's on camera. So they're shuffling, make sure that they actually hit some of the bottom, hit some of the top. If they didn't hit some of the bottom, you just say, can you take the bottom stack and kind of move it into the deck, like riffle it into the deck? Just force them to do one extra shuffle sometimes like that. It really helps out. And then after they complete the riffle, you can be like, okay, I want to cut 1. So you can go from the bottom to the top, or from the top to the bottom. If they didn't really move anything of their cards from the bottom to the top, okay, we'll put the stuff from the bottom to the top, because that could be more chances of it being a dead card. But you don't know. It should have been random to begin with. So that's it's on them if it's a complete brick on their part. They just play fair, and then you don't really have to even deal with this kind of crap. Like, there's no strategy to randomizing. It's truly just RNG. And if you're going to do something to enforce RNG, just control where they're cutting their cards, especially if you see someone not actually cutting in a certain way. And yeah, that's all I can really say. It's most of the time it just becomes he said, she said. Now, when it comes to pattern, the reason why it's so important not just to do half and 5 every time, because if the deck gets manipulated to the point where most of the good cards, say actually this time the good cards are the green ones, and they put it mostly in the middle, like the bottom half, Like they keep everything basically bottom half heavy, and most of the cards that you don't want to see are up top. And then you do half and 5. They're likely going to open with a hand with exactly what they want, and that's no good either. So they can have the hand that they can have optimally as long as it was earned through proper randomization. I'm okay with them opening a god hand as long as it was completely random. I mean, I had my opponent roll the die and do that same trick against me because I told him, oh, you have to, I think we're like riffle 4 times and take the top 3 to the bottom. And they're like, oh, that's really cool. I want you to do the same thing. What ended up happening with that hand, that was like a crazy hand that I pricked so hard with 2 Ash, 2 Bell, and 2 Imperm. And then I basically lost after burning all my hand traps. So it is accepted that I bricked that hand. I'm like, whatever, it happens from time to time because it's random. There's not much I can say about that, and that's the best part. When it is properly random, there's no one to blame but the actual RNG of the game. Now, before I close out this video, make sure you guys check out MST.TV to pick up these awesome foil blue sleeves. They're on sale right now, but the sale is not going to last forever. The sale is going to end very soon, so within the next couple of days it's going to be gone, especially in August. So this is your last chance to pick up at this particular price. There's going to be new drops coming in a couple of months, and they are really looking hot. I really wish I could share some with you right now, but I think I'll hype it up when they get here, when they can actually go on sale for you guys. It's going to be really awesome. New sleeves, new products, just everything all around. I'm really happy about it, so stay tuned for that. If you guys also want to pick up this beautiful playmat, you guys can do so also at MSTmerch.com. And let's jump back to the video as we close it out. There's a couple of other patterns I kind of want to share with you guys. The first thing is, I already told you guys about like how to ensure randomization, and the point of this video is so that if your opponent's not going to ensure proper randomization, you sure as hell can force them into proper randomization. You know, and especially when your opponent's not shuffling properly, you can pick up their deck and shuffle properly. Ensure that anyone's shuffling is always keeping cards facing the table. No card should be parallel, because if it's parallel and they're holding like this and their head's like on the side here, you know, then they can see it. In remote duel, I actually caught a guy. This is like my opponent. He was shuffling like this. You guys see a problem here? I mean, I see more than one problem. I see a whole deck of problems because I can see that the bottom card wasn't getting manipulated. I'm pretty bad at this. But the bottom card wasn't getting manipulated. So I told him, hey, can you actually point your deck down as you shuffle? Because you can see all the cards. And if I can see all your cards, I'm pretty sure you can see your cards. And he's like, oh, sorry about that. And then he just started shuffling. It was like such an awkward moment, but these are some of the moments that you have to be confrontational about, because if you're not confrontational about it, then you're just letting the guy get away with it. And like, if you saw something, say something, you know, it's pretty simple. And you just be careful of anyone shuffling at an angle that points towards themselves like this, because they can see the cards and you can't. Cards, you should be able to see the back face of the sleeve, and the front face of the sleeve should be pointing angled downwards towards the table. I mean, people like to shuffle like this all the time, but just be very careful. Some people like to, you know, reverse Uno you like this. Oh, they say, oh, I can't. You have to shuffle your cards more properly, and yeah, just angle it so that it can actually be randomized properly. And if they see that you have a pattern of tendency of doing this, they can actually see the cards, and they're kind of asking for it. And you might even get penalized for revealing your deck content while shuffling, and people have been penalized for that. So just be very careful. And that's one of the shuffling patterns you have to be aware of. People angling their deck this way, and you have to be careful of people angling their deck, well, so they can see it and you can't, like this as well. And if you see that the bottom card is not being manipulated, no one's really doing anything, judges thinks it's fine, then that's the point where you go roll the dice. And instead of going from top to bottom, a lot of people tend to ask cut to the bottom to the top, and it's actually a very common cut as well. And these are the people trying to ensure that they have nothing to be suspicious about once they play into the game, because, you know, the point is, if you can't guarantee that your opponent's going to randomize, you can randomize for them. And that's all I got for this video. If you guys want to see more stuff like this in the future, and when more of these trends kind of come up, I will kind of break it down for you guys so that you guys enjoy a very fair game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Well, make sure that you guys smash that thumbs up button, hit like, hit subscribe, ding notification bell. And yeah, I'm trying to work on my set still. I haven't had the time to actually break it all down. Yeah, that's all I really got for this video. So well, have a good one, guys, and happy dueling. Hopefully you guys will have a little bit more peace of mind when you do your remote duel or play in real life.